Does it feel like you're running on a treadmill that's slowly speeding up? You are technically working more efficient hours and producing more value than any generation in human history. Yet, you can't afford a median-priced home, your grocery bills are suffocating, and retirement is starting to feel like a mythical concept. This isn't just inflation or bad spending habits. It is a mathematical anomaly. Somewhere along the line, the link between your hard work and your reward was deliberately severed. You are generating record-breaking wealth, but it is vanishing into thin air before it ever hits your bank account. To understand the heist of the century, we have to go back to the scene of the crime, a time when the American dream was actually mathematically possible. So exactly when did the math break? If you look at the economic history of the United States, there is a specific period that economists often refer to as the Great Compression or the Golden Age of Capitalism. Specifically, let's look at the years between 1948 and 1973. During this quarter century, the American economy operated on a fundamental, unwritten social contract. It was a simple rule that even a child could understand. If you work harder and produce more, you earn more. The data is undeniable. Between 1948 and 1973, net productivity in the U.S. rose by 96.7%. And guess what happened to the hourly pay of the typical worker? It rose by 91.3%. The lines on the graph were almost identical. They moved in perfect lockstep. This mathematical symmetry created the middle class as we knew it. It was an era where a single income, often from a manufacturing job, was sufficient to buy a 3-bedroom house, a new car every few years, and fully support a spouse and 3 children. It was a time when a summer job could actually pay for a year of college tuition. This wasn't just good luck. It was the result of strong labor unions, corporate tax rates that incentivized reinvestment in workers rather than stock buybacks, and a financial culture that viewed the workforce as an asset to be nurtured, not a cost to be cut. For a generation, this felt like a law of nature. People believed that as technology advanced and we became more efficient, everyone would get richer. We assumed that by the year 2024, with our supercomputers and AI, we would be working 20-hour weeks and living in absolute abundance. But looking back, we were naive. We thought the system was designed to reward us. In reality, the system was merely allowing us to prosper until it decided it didn't need to anymore. Because in the early 1970s, this beautiful symmetry didn't just fade away, it was violently snapped in half. The Golden Age didn't die of natural causes. It was murdered by a specific set of decisions that turned the American dream into a mathematical impossibility. So, who killed the American dream? The forensic evidence points to a specific timeline starting in the early 1970s. Economists call it the Great Divergence, but you can think of it as the moment the engine was rewired to siphon fuel away from the driver and straight into the owner's tank. In 1971, President Richard Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Suddenly, money became elastic. It could be printed, manipulated, and debased. But the real glitch wasn't just about the currency, it was about a fundamental shift in corporate philosophy. Look at the chart again starting from 1973. Productivity kept climbing. We got computers, the internet, automation, and advanced logistics. Between 1979 and 2020, net productivity rose by 61.8%. But the hourly compensation for typical workers, it crawled up a pathetic 17.5%. If the minimum wage had actually kept pace with productivity since the late 60s, it wouldn't be $7.25. It would be over $24 an hour today. So, where did that missing 44% of value go? It didn't vanish. It was legalized theft. The smoking gun is found in 1982. Before 1982, it was generally illegal for companies to buy back their own stock to artificially inflate share prices. It was considered market manipulation. But in 1982, under the Reagan administration, the SEC passed Rule 10b-18. This obscure rule created a safe harbor for stock buybacks. Suddenly, corporations stopped reinvesting profits into better wages or R&D. Instead, they started pouring trillions of dollars into buying their own shares. This changed the game entirely. CEOs began getting paid in stock options, which meant their only loyalty was to the share price, not the product, and certainly not the employees. The logic shifted from, we need to pay workers well so they can buy our products, the Henry Ford model, to we need to squeeze labor costs to zero to maximize quarterly returns. Simultaneously, the protective walls around the workforce were demolished. Union membership plummeted from over 30% in the 50s to barely 10% today. Without collective bargaining, you lost your leverage. You became a line item on a spreadsheet, a cost to be minimized. The result? The top 1% siphoned off nearly $50 trillion from the bottom 90% over the last 4 decades. They told you that if you educated yourself and worked efficiently, the market would reward you. That was a lie. The market was re-engineered to absorb your efficiency and pay you the bare minimum required to keep you showing up the next day. The ladder wasn't just pulled up, it was dismantled and sold for scrap metal. But here is the most terrifying part. We have the charts, we have the dates. We know exactly how the money is being stolen. Yet we are working longer hours than medieval peasants. We are burnout, exhausted, and anxious, yet we keep running faster. Why? Because the system didn't just rig the numbers, it hacked your brain. The economic trap is brutal, but the psychological cage they built around it is inescapable. So if the math is so clearly broken, why haven't we revolted? Why are we still clocking in at 9 a.m., skipping lunch breaks, and answering emails at midnight? The answer lies in a psychological mechanism that is far more potent than any law: the illusion of possibility. Think of the modern economy like a casino. In a casino, the house edge guarantees the casino always wins in the long run. But to keep you pulling the lever, the machine has to let you win just enough to keep hope alive. The system knows it can't pay you zero. If you starve, you can't work. So it calibrated a new equilibrium: survival, but with debt. When the gap between your productivity and your wage widened, the system didn't tell you to consume less. It handed you a credit card. It handed you a student loan. It handed you a 30-year mortgage. This was the masterstroke. By filling the wage gap with credit, they didn't just solve the consumption problem, they created a compliant workforce. A worker with savings is dangerous. They can quit. They can strike. They can demand better conditions, but a worker with $50,000 in student debt and a maxed-out Visa card, they are docile. They are terrified. They will tolerate the unpaid overtime. They will accept the stagnation because the alternative is ruin. This created the cult of overwork. We started wearing our exhaustion like a badge of honor. We convinced ourselves that if we just hustle harder, if we just start that side hustle, if we just optimize our morning routine, we can outrun the algorithm. We blame ourselves. When we can't afford a house, we don't look at the Fed's interest rates or corporate stock buybacks. We look at our avocado toast. We internalize a systemic failure as a personal character flaw. This is the treadmill. Technology made us 100% more efficient, but instead of giving us 50% more free time, the system just doubled the speed of the belt. You have email on your phone, so you can work from anywhere, which really means you are expected to work from everywhere. The boundaries between labor and life have been dissolved. You are now an asset that is expected to be always on, regions generating value until you are depleted. So here we stand. The data proves you are being underpaid. The history proves it wasn't always this way. And the psychology explains why you're too tired to fight back. Is this just the inevitable fate of late-stage capitalism? Or is there a crack in the wall? A way to reclaim the value that was stolen from you? The answer might require you to rethink everything you've been told about success. The productivity wage gap is not an accident. It is not a temporary glitch. It is the architectural blueprint of the modern economy. The gap between the line of your productivity and the line of your wage represents profit, but not your profit. That gap is the fuel for record-breaking stock markets, billionaire space races, and golden parachutes. For decades, we've been sold a story that if we just educate ourselves more, work longer hours, and optimize our efficiency, we will catch up to the carrot on the stick. But the data proves that the faster we run, the further the stick moves away. The bitter truth is this: the golden age isn't coming back. The rules that protected the American worker were rewritten in 1982, and no one in power is rushing to change them back. So, what do? First, stop blaming yourself for structural failures. You aren't failing because you bought a latte. You're struggling because your purchasing power has been systematically diluted for 50 years. Second, understand that in a game where the house always wins, the only winning move is to stop playing by their rules. Stop chasing the loyalty trap. Prioritize your assets over your income, and realize that your time is the only non-renewable resource you have. Don't sell it at a discount. Now, I want to hear from you. Look at your own life compared to your parents at your age. Do you feel like you are working twice as hard for half the lifestyle? Or do you think the trade-off is worth it for the technology we have today? Let me know in the comments below. If this video helped you see the Matrix, hit that like button and subscribe to 1% Logic. We explore the systems designed to keep you in the dark so you can finally turn on the lights. Thanks for watching.